You all, we are not licensed professionals. You know, we are just here on this roller coaster called life, trying to be better friends to one another, trying to be better human beings on this planet. If you're tuning in, we are not opting out of therapy. We are not advocating that you listen to us and not see someone who is licensed and trained to help you with day-to-day life on how to cope and deal. So we advocate for therapy a lot here. We believe that everyone has something to talk to somebody about. So, just like to make that disclaimer that we're just here giving our opinions and having discussions week by week. And we're hoping that, you know, maybe you can find something useful, or if at least find a little humor in this terrible, terrible rock we call the world.
In other words, if you listen to our advice and you get popped in the mouth, don't at us.
Yeah, don't at me because you may get popped in the mouth again. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Friendship University, you know, the podcast where we come and try to be a little less trash every week in hopes that it will encourage you to be a little less trash. I am joined here by me, myself, and I again this week. Mickey had some plans and things that he needed to get done, so he will be unfortunately unable to join us this week. So I'm kicking it off solo dolo, but you know, show must go on. I'm happy for all the returning listeners. Thank you so much for your continued support. Welcome to all our new listeners. We're so glad you took the time out to give us a listen and check us out. And hopefully you'll hear something that draws you back in to become a permanent listener, because we're just out here trying to give encouragement and let people know that people are your greatest resource. So, you know, treat them as such. I don't have any like new news to disclose. I'll say, you know, we all have been privy to what's been happening in the media with all of the celebrities giving unsolicited comments about things. Will and Jada, I'ma just say, take us out the group chat. Just please take us out the group chat. I understand it was in your book. I get it, because it was going to come out anyway. But, like, we don't need to know that. All this hoopla and hollering that was going on, bringing people to the red table, black table, green table, blue table. I just don't understand why we got to know. Also, Sexy Red, take us out the group chat, too. You keep speaking other words than ski. And I don't understand why. Please stop. Please take a note from all these celebrities who don't do interviews and understand why they don't do interviews. Another thing, I was going to talk to Miki about this. I don't want to hold off a week about it, but if you haven't heard, NASA plans to build homes for astronauts and civilians on the moon by 2040 with 3D printers. So if you ain't got a 3D printer yet, I would say go get one, because I feel like the value is about to go all the way up on those. I know that they're dealing with some pretty large companies about that. I'm interested to see what that would look like. I've seen what 3D printing can do, and building a whole home, which I've heard of. I've never personally seen it. I mean, I think I've seen it on like YouTube, but not in real life. NASA, girl, if you got money to build 3D homes on the moon, please build them on Earth, because we have thousands upon thousands of homeless people. So we're back for another week. As you all can guess from the last time I was solo dolo, this is going to be another ode to our 90s babies. We are going to be doing vital information for your everyday life.
And now, Lori Beth Denberg with more vital information for your everyday life.
So, if you have been anywhere near Stevie Wonder's internet, you have heard about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It's everywhere. You don't even have to tune in to the news to actually see it. TikTok is all over it. So is Instagram, all the social media platforms. I would like to just make the disclaimer off the rip that the Friendship University podcast, and I know Miki isn't here to speak for himself, but I know that we share similar sentiments. We in no shape or form think that this situation is funny or that anyone's right over the other person. You may hear me make jokes or anything. I do that often. I make jokes about a lot of things. I've made jokes about my own dead relatives. I learned in therapy that was a coping mechanism. I've actually worked on that a little bit, so I don't make as many jokes as I used to. But there are just some things that are going to slip out. I'm going to try to give a synopsis of the history as accurately as I possibly can. History buffs out there, historians, if y'all know more or you got something, you can drop it in the comment. You could email us. You could do whatever. I'm just giving you what I know. So I'm not claiming to be in the library reading all the books about everything that's going on with these two entities. And so, it is what it is. I hope that you find this information helpful. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to spark conversation and thought around how two truths can exist at the same time and how sometimes our perception hinders us from seeing what reality is. So, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, right? After the Holocaust, the Jewish nation was just not trying to stay in that godforsaken place. They were just like, we got to take it back to the basics. We need to get out of here. We need to get our homeland. And so for them, they considered the Middle East to be their homeland. And so a lot of them ended up in Palestine, but the Palestinians weren't trying to hear them coming back. It was just like a situation where this is our land now. We set up shop. We've done the work. We've built. We've served. The only Christopher we acknowledge is Wallace, essentially. It's giving very much appropriation. It's giving very much y'all trying to indoctrinate us, and we're not trying to hear that. We got our own culture. We got our own lives going on. So they felt like the Jews were trying to take back what they considered their land, and it's kind of like a tough situation because have you ever gotten out of a relationship with someone and then you get into a relationship with another person and then all of a sudden they boo? My boo. Like, no, I've moved on. You move on too. But also, maybe I do still love you. Maybe I do want to go back, but I can't trust you. So I don't know. So there was just a lot of up and down going on. Britain intervenes because at this time, Palestine was under the rule of Britain. And so Britain is like, we condemn the Holocaust. They're giving their whole political statements. They're saying what they need to say to keep the people happy. And also, too, they're like, we want these people to have a home. And we not going to bring them here. So they made a mandate to allow Palestine to be their new home. Now, Palestinians weren't feeling this, They're feeling like strangers are coming to their home. R with a capital O-U-R, essentially. You're opening up the fridge. You're putting your feet on our tables. You're using our private Wi-Fi. You're just doing a lot to be a visitor. We're not appreciating it. Like, this is our home, and you are treating it like it's your home, and it's no longer your home. So Britain's initial, intervention doesn't work. And so then they bring the UN in. So they propose to the UN to get involved. And this just turns into chaos. This was like in the 40s to give context into the time frame. And the Holocaust was from 1941 to 1945, I believe. Some people consider the Holocaust to be longer because the eradication efforts started before the actual eradication, but I'm just going based off of what I know, the actual killing of the Jewish nation and people was like 4 years from 1941 to 1945. So this is in the later 40s that all of this is happening and the UN is coming in. And so their proposition is to split the nations up. Or I'm sorry, not the nations, but to split the state into 2 states, essentially. So this doesn't really settle well with the Palestinians, and you can kind of imagine that this actually made things worse. At this point, the UN is like, we want to split it up. We want to actually carve out a piece of Palestine and make what would now be considered Israel. They're like, we don't want you to take any of our land. This is our land. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island. Like, nah. It's actually not yours, mine, or ours. I don't care what SZA said. We don't share. Like, he not your man on the weekend and my man on the weekday. This is our island. This is our state. We're keeping it. Please don't try to split it up. But because Britain had control and the UN had kind of like a domination and they had just pull and just different things like that, they were able to really make this happen. So because of this, there was a result that happened in from 1947 to 1948. There was the Arab-Israeli War. This was partly due, people consider, because they split it up from Palestine to Israel. And there was just so much unrest from it that Palestine was just like, we don't approve of this. We don't want it. So they rebelled essentially against it. We're not for it. Now, those efforts, though they did result in a lot of lives stolen, didn't really change much, right? You still had Palestine. You still had Israel. So the unrest just still continues. And for many, many years, there's just like a lot of I don't know if anybody listening used to remember prank calling, where they would call and be like, hi, is your refrigerator running? Oh, well, then go catch it. It's a lot of that's going on. A lot of back and forth, a lot of cattiness, a lot of love and hip hop-esque stuff going on. Essentially, shaking the table. We just really not messing with y'all. We want you to know we're not messing with you. We're not really doing a whole uprising, but we just want you to know we still don't F with y'all at the end of the day. A couple of decades later, in 1967, you have the 6-Day War. Many Palestinians, they went to war, and it was a war between Israel and Arab neighbors. Now, to give some context back to that, during the Arab-Israeli War, this kind of, if you hear Arab-Israeli, this kind of goes back to the connotation of the UN petitioning to make these places 2 states. So to split up Palestine to Palestine and then Israel. And so when the resolution was given to make it 2 states, they initially said we wanted to consider these 2 states as a Jewish state and an Arab state. So Israel and Palestine respectively. So this is why you hear a lot of the terms like Palestinian and Arab or Israel and Jew being used interchangeably, essentially. So you have in 1967 the Israeli and Arab war. They're neighbors, but they're just like, we just really want you to know we're still not messing with y'all. So that happens. More lives again are lost. And at this point, the UN, a lot of people are thinking like, what do we do to make peace here, right? I don't know if you've ever had a situation where maybe you are the third wheel in a friend group and friends are bickering and you don't really understand, like, how do I bring resolve to this? Like, they're just not seeing eye to eye. I can't really decide who's right or who's wrong because each one of them have a point. Each one of them are rightful in the feelings that they're having. And neither one of those feelings are above the other, but you just want peace, right? And so I'm talking about this. I want you all to be thinking about like your truths, your realities, situations where you had unresolved with someone and maybe you came back and realized my truth actually wasn't what I thought it was in that moment, because that was my reality and or that was my perception, and my perception actually wasn't reality that was happening. So there's just so many people coming in and trying to be like, what do we need to do to get you all to see eye to eye? On one side, it's like, this is our land. You coming into my home. Like, imagine someone knocking on the door and being like, hey, I used to live here. I want to come back. I'm on hard times. My people are being eradicated. They're being killed by the dozens of thousands. Can you help me? I know this is a safe place. On one hand, it's like, you have the right to say no. But on the other hand, some people are like, well, the humanitarian way is to say, yeah, let that neighbor in. So, like, come on in. It's just a lot of variables that are going into the conversation around this. So, there's a little bit of that quiet cattiness happening for a couple of decades. And then in the 80s, you have Hamas born. Hamas, which is a political militant group, they come together and they're like, we need to devise an actual plan to stop this. So you can almost think of them as thinking of Israel as squatters. They're like, the government ain't doing nothing. We need to get them out. But homeless people are squatters too, right? So there's that, like, two sides to the coin. Why do we have to kick homeless people out of houses that aren't being used? To get them off the street, to get them back on their feet if they need to. They aren't really, like, harming anybody, but it's not their property. Or is it? Because squatters' law does say it's their property. A lot of ambiguity and vagueness happening there. But Hamas is born, and then things really get kicked into overdrive at this point. So the Palestinians, they held their first intifada. And apologies if I mispronounced that or whatever. I'm not really familiar with that word. I do know that it pretty much means uprising or rebellion, but that's the word, that's the actual term that's being used. So I just wanted to be politically correct in that. They held their first intifada in 1987 against the Israelis. There's more war, more murder. It's just not looking like there will ever be peace. I don't know about y'all, but I've been in a situation where I've been the middle aspect of a friend group, and you're like, these people gonna be for the rest of their life. Like, we hang out, one person says it's cool, the other person says it's cool, and then we get to the mutual meeting spot and it's not cool. But you said it was cool. Like, everybody chilling, we're good, ain't been no, like, unrest. But now we get here and it's beef on sight. So Hamas is like, nah, we don't want it to be cool. We want what we want. This is our truth. This is our reality. This is what we want. So they do the intifada, and it just, more lives are lost. Things kind of quiet down a little bit. And by quiet down, I use that term very loosely. It's not a lot of news coverage. It's not a lot of things happening where people are made aware outside of those states, right? Because there are things that happen locally that other people don't know about because you're not there. And it doesn't warrant national news. We don't get to decide what warrants national news, right? So they decided that whatever was going over there in that time frame didn't warrant national news. So we speed it up. We go into the early 2000s. And so in 2005, there's a second intifada that takes place. And now Palestine has taken back Gaza and the West Bank territories. Now, if we rewind it back, if we take the fishpole and round the line back, originally, Gaza and the West Bank territories were captured by Israel in the war in the 60s. So, again, you're thinking two truths and a lie. Like, okay, well, if we gonna play by rules and this is happening, we took control over that. And now by you taking control back over it, that's kind of insinuating that you want beef because it's ours. We in the sandbox. Toys are being exchanged. Some toys are being claimed as our own, and now you want them back. So Israel wasn't really having this. And in return, they cut supplies to all those areas. Food, water, even school supplies, honestly. They cut to, and they were just like, we're not going to give you anything. We're cutting all of that off. If you want to go, and again, drawing it back in, I'm just thinking about like, there have been times where people choose their friendship groups. They choose who's right and choose who's wrong. I've had situations where someone was straight up speaking lies about me, and the friendship group decided to believe those people. Now, the lies eventually came out, and they wanted to be like, oh, we're so sorry we didn't believe you, but maybe it's too late. Maybe I don't want it anymore. You decided to believe those people initially, and now you want back on the train, and I don't know. But anywho, we fast forward to current coverage, and this is in 2023, right? We saw days ago Hamas attacked Israel, and this was seemingly on every side they got attacked, unbeknownst to them. I don't know if they sent a stool pigeon, a message in a bottle, glass to the wall, cup, telephone. It really makes me think about like the Game of Thrones times, those older times where you used to send messages of war coming, and the other side just didn't know because we don't have text messages. The FBI don't got to get involved because there's no text message thread. There's no cell phone pinging of the towers. This is just word of mouth. So Hamas is just like, nah, it ain't over. It's on site. Every time we see you, it's on site. So Hamas attacked Israel, and it's just been chaos. And I can't say ever since because it's been chaos from the beginning, right? You have two sides that feel like their truths are the truth, essentially. Like, what I believe is what I believe. And we've seen this multiple times in history, like over and over and over again. But we can also like drown it down to everyday life where we have thought our truth was the truth in a situation. And then when we actually come to a resolve and really think about what transpired, it changes the perception that we had, which also changes our reality. So after Hamas attacks Israel and everything's going on, the prime minister of Israel was like, bet they want war, we're going to give them war. Because each side, again, is like, this is our side. We're going to take the side that we feel like is the truth. So they asking for beef. They woke up and chose violence. They went low. We went to hell. So prime minister's like, let's give them war. Let's give them what they want. Attacks are now being launched. And the attacks that have been launched have renewed attention on the region's conflict. It's promoted protests around the world. It's garnered attention, which I think actually is needed. Like these are kind of things that our eyes do need to be on, just like they were with our parents back in the day before we were born, when we were little and not really watching the news. But now you have all these things happening. You even have people in the country that I'm in, which is America, kind of questioning like what's going on. We're sending all these funds, we're doing all this stuff. Like, so historically, America has been an ally to Israel. This is like drawing back decades and decades and decades ago. This is probably why you have been seeing like relief money keeps coming into play. Biden does want to help to save face, but like I feel like he don't really want to jump into the fight. Like it's kind of like I see it's a jump game. I feel like we fighting 5-on-5, and I'm a 6 and y'all may not really need me. Maybe you do. I'ma just throw my purse in. I'm just hit somebody real quick. I'm gonna hit somebody with a shoe. I'm gonna call the police. And then I'm gonna get everybody taxis home. But I can't really, my own country, America, we are in a Tyson fight right now. And we're not trying to get our ear bitten off. We got to pay attention. We got to pay attention to what's going on over here. So all I can do is throw a couple of bands at you and in hopes that will help. That's just what I feel like is going on with Biden and the administration. There are hostages that have been taken by the Palestinians. We don't really know yet if they're Americans, who they are. It's just all over the place. So all of this, thinking about it and drawing back to it again, is just like making me think about times even in my own life where I thought my perception was reality and my truth was the truth, and in that thinking made me negate what was the best for that situation. There are actually times that they tell you that it's better to, do you want peace or do you want to be right? So, and I'm not dwindling down the situation between the Palestinians and the Israelis. For sure, there's like a deep rooted history of that faux ship that's happened between them, right? Like, this is the first time we've ever covered people really being foes. Like, I know a lot of times we go into the Reddit discussions and we talk about how y'all really hate y'all friends, but nah, these niggas ain't never been friends. They never wanted to have anything to do with one another. They've been foes from the start, from meeting, from conception. So, but it just really made me think that, like, we see the world through layers, I feel like. And these layers are made up of a lot of things, right? Emotions, past experiences, beliefs. But this biased view of ours and our reality can oftentimes be detrimental to us in the long run. It really sometimes doesn't help the way that we shape our views. So, experiences and who you are and what you've been through don't need to be negated. It did make you who you are today. It's what you do with that actually makes you the person to become who you want to be. And so, I looked at perception or whatever, and in the simplest terms, it was how an individual perceives reality, how he, she, them perceive the world. Perception differs from person to person. It is an individual phenomenon, and as such, no two perceptions are the same. Life perception is as unique as an individual and is as unique as the experiences an individual has. So it is the processing of reality by the individual, but perception is not reality rarely. So you think about it like, if you take into account that perception means my emotions, my past experience, my knowledge, my cognitive understanding as an individual, it'll never be what the person next to me's perception is. And so as you make friends, connections, relationships, even as you think about the ones that you have right now, you really need to understand that they may conceive their perception as reality as you may, but that doesn't mean it is reality. Reality is reality. Reality is what's happening right now, today. What you can see, touch, feel, interpret as factual. Looking up the meaning of reality, it says the world or the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notational ideal of them. So if my emotions aren't the same as yours, if my knowledge isn't the same as yours, if my feelings, all of these things kind of differ, there are going to be times that there will be disagreements, that don't necessarily have an ultimate truth. And by that, I'm thinking like, I say this a lot, or I feel like I say it a lot in in reality, for lack of better terms. I don't know if I've said it a lot on the podcast, but duality exists. Two things can exist at once. You can have, let's take for instance a situation where someone says someone is an a-hole, but they also do a lot of philanthropic work, and they also give back to the community a lot. Maybe they treat their significant other like trash. They don't know how to be a partner. They do know how to give back to the community. They do know how to feed the homeless, do all these things, and they get an award for that, right? Do you go to the award show and say, no, this person's an a-hole, they don't know how to be a partner, when the award show is for what they actually excel in? So two things are true. They can be a jackass to you as a partner, but they can also be an award-winning, excellent philanthropist to the world. Nobody's saying one is right over wrong. It's just two realities are existing at the same time. So as you go into the rest of your week, as you go into the rest of this month, or even to the holiday, because I feel like the holidays really give a lot of introspective time for individuals. And I'm going to see what we can do with the podcast with that, because I really would love to help with this time of individuals who are thinking about themselves, who are thinking about their family, who are thinking about the family that they may not have. Just a lot with that. I would really love Miki and myself to be able to give advice or give some kind of guidance to things that are helpful in those avenues. But take this next week and really think about like situations as they come and your truths, and what your truths mean in reverence to the person whose truths you're going against, or the group of truths that you're believing that are going against the other group of truths who have their belief systems. I know we're very prone to believe that colloquialism of there are three truths: your truth, their truth, and then the truth, or your story, their story, and then the actual story. But there are some situations where both parties are wrong. Oftentimes, actually, both parties are wrong. Now, we love to grade what the wrongdoing over the other wrongdoing was. But at the end of the day, that may not be the actual answer to getting the resolution we're looking for. So, I hope this informational session was helpful. This vital information for your everyday life. Take that knowledge. I'll be introspectively thinking about these things as well. I love a good introspect, honestly. And reading all of this and really thinking about it from a substance of there are two truths here. Because I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Israeli. And we love to say what is truth or what is right and wrong. But in this situation, looking at the facts, I personally cannot call it. Because I'm not in it. And I don't really know. A lot of times what happens under the roof of that house, only the people under the roof of that house know. So I'm going based off of facts. I will end with the friendship quote of the week. I know Mickey isn't here. He can give you the friendship fact and the odd friendship. But next week, I'm sure he'll have something awesome for us. So the friendship quote that I found this week was, in the fires of war, friendships are forged like tempered steel, withstanding the toughest battles and never losing their edge. Author unknown. I hope this finds you all in peace and serenity, and I can't wait to get back with you with Mickey next week. We'll see you soon. You'll find all of our handles in the description box below, and I'm saying peace and tranquility. Bye.